Hello and welcome to another one of our videos. On this time, instead of exercises or talking rehab, we're going to be talking about advanced strength training methods. So these are how you can get results really quickly without actually training anymore. It's just getting more out of the workout that you're using at the time. So let's get straight into it. So this is taken from one of our latest things that we're going to release very soon in October. Basically, it's like 101 programs. As I said, we probably could have come up with a lot more, but these are split up over not just strength training, but running workouts, sports-specific workouts, some injury ones, but not too many of them because they're a bit more complicated. But a lot of the fun sort of stuff and how to break them up. And this is just a sample of what we have in store in this basically a little black book of everything. So let's get into it. So why do we need advanced methods? Why do we use them? So the reason we use them is because the body is very good at adapting to the exercise, basically trying to find ways to become efficient at everything that you do. That's why when you first start working out, everything hurts, but over the period of a few weeks, like very quickly, you start to get good at it, and uh, add more weight to it, you get stronger and everything. But over a period of time, things start to not change as much. Even though you might be still working as hard, you don't pull up sore, and you sort of plateau out. So basically, if the challenge isn't great enough for your body, it won't. There's nothing to change within your body at all. It's why cardio is not very good, because basically it's only one exercise repeatedly done, and you become efficient at it very quickly. So you become fitter and you're faster and last longer, but doesn't give you the faster change that you're looking for in terms of either aesthetic looks or that little extra performance you might want for sports. Um, the advanced methods also allow us to create basically more damage in less time, so a bigger return on your investment. So longer recovery time means greater muscle gains, which means faster metabolic rate, which means either weight loss, or you could be getting greater muscle gain for improved performance in sports, or whatever it is you want to do, or even if you just wanted to look bigger. But apart from all of that, they're great fun and they keep everything fresh and exciting. So what can you do to make your training more effective? Well, usually it's changing exercises. That's by far the easiest way to make things harder, but you can get to a point where you're changing them too often, and you can get to a point where you've learned so many things, even when you do change them, they're very similar to the last one, and your body says, oh, I sort of already know this, and you become good at basically everything, which is what you want to do. You're looking to do that first and foremost. Always technique and having really sound movement patterns is important. So once you've sort of covered that off, that's when you sort of want to look at the more complex and advanced style of training, where now you start playing with the reps, the sets, the tempo, and even the rest. Any one of these things you change makes everything completely different. So that one exercise, say the picture of the deadlift here, if we did 3 sets of 10, well, it's completely different to doing 6 sets of 3. Even though it's the same exercise, the intensity is so much more higher on the reps of 3. If we change the rest time from like a 2-minute rest to a 30-second rest, that changes everything. All right, so can you sort of mean you only have to change one of these variables to make a significant difference to your training. Most people use the same sets and reps all the time. They change their exercises, but they're always doing 3 sets of 10. And basically, your body's sort of used to that feeling, and it's become efficient at it. So no matter what exercise you change to, it still feels like the same thing. All right, so now, very important before you get into these things, that you really need about 1 to 2 years of learning the exercise techniques and building your strength with just the basic methods, getting your technique down pat. And like I said a minute ago, the biggest change will just come from that, from changing exercises, because you haven't seen them for the before, or you may not be very good at them. So just becoming good at them will force change, and will force it quite quickly. However, the advanced exercise who's covered off all this will need that something more. So the advanced training was all about changing your method or strategy involved. So rather than changing just the exercises, changing reps is going to be the most effective way of enhancing it. Understand, though, that sets and reps oppose each other. So So if I decrease my reps, I increase my sets, and vice versa. So if I increase my reps, I decrease my sets. And the other thing I like to talk about is the intensity rule. So you don't always, because again, you can get very used to the high volume training, even though they're hard. At first they'll be hard, but then you'll get good at them. So you have to go to the complete opposite to become not good at it again, more or less. All right, so basic rep rule, 1 to 5 maximal strength, very much neuromuscular stuff. Nervous system is very, can be too much of this can really wreck joints, so you've got to be very careful. And obviously you need a spotter with some of these things. Exercise must be very simple on these on the really low reps. Reps of 6 to 12 is more the muscular size and starts to damage muscle fibers. That's where most people do their training. It's a bit safer, but you can get too used to it. So you do need to venture down into that maximal strength. And strength endurance is another one. This one's probably the abused part of like group fitness training, CrossFit as well. Probably overdo this side of things, and they really miss out on maximal strength and don't quite get enough out of it. They're just doing too much of the same. All right, so remember before I said less reps equals more sets and vice versa. Tempo and time under tension can alter a lot of these rep continuums here, so which we'll touch on in a minute. And the other thing is power exercises or isometric holding. The reps are sort of not quite the same, just because the time it takes to complete the exercise is different. So there's some variables you have to keep in mind. Okay, so the intensity curve, or the intensity, like switching between high and low, or volume and intensity is probably a better way of describing it. Is I like to use this all the time. So I've sort of given you a little graph here of like where if this is like the reps, and then we've got total sets. So if I've got like drop sets, on simple sets to start with, and I might be doing, 3 sets of 10 over 8 exercises, gives me a total of 25 sets or so. But the intensity is quite low. All right, so then I move down into the drop sets, and I'm moving into a higher volume, so then I'm going into the volume side of things, but the intensity is quite low. All right, so I'm doing like nearly 40 sets in a workout, but very low in intensity, where here the intensity was quite high. All right, so simple sets, it had a lot of rest time and working lower rep range. So wave loading, very high intensity workout, where I'm working reps of 1 to 3 and might be doing 6 sets of. So the volume of total reps is very low. So the intensity of the reps is very low, but the sets are quite high and the intensity is quite high. So I'm sort of always going between, so high volume is the rep curve and high intensity is the set curve. All right, so usually about 3 to 4 weeks for each one. All right, so it's a good way to sort of, like, you're never good at anything. So one minute you're doing thousands of reps, and then the next program you're hardly doing any, but everything you're picking up isn't going to squash you. Where on the drop sets, you don't really feel it to probably about the rep 6, 7, where it starts to burn and stuff like that. All right, so that's how you can sort of mix between programs. As I touched on before, don't forget tempo, very underutilized method change. It's very highly effective at developing maximal strength and power gain. So how to read tempo on a program, usually the first number, or always the first number if it's written properly, is the eccentric phase, which is the lowering phase, or the, if it's on a bench press, it means the part where you're lowering the bar towards your chest, that'd be the first number. The second number is like the pause, and the third number is when you push it. Sometimes there's a fourth number that I find that just a little bit confusing. It's when they sort of have another pause after this one. Rarely do you pause that long there, because you're just sort of lowering it quite slowly, or you should be anyway. All right, so 3 seconds to lower, 1 second hold, and a 1 second to push it. All right, that's how you read it on a program. Basic rules for when you're using these advanced methods is the lower the reps, the more simple the exercise must be. So if I'm working reps of 1 to 5, I really don't want to be using some complicated one leg, one arm thing. I'm going to be very much keeping it simple, like just a normal squat or bench press if I'm using a pushing exercise, for example. the complexity of an exercise will compromise the strength of it all. All right. Occasionally we can, but it's very times, and yeah, and like I said, it's just hard to. It's just the complexity is compromising what you're wanting to do. I rarely complete more than 30 sets per workout. Sometimes it might be more, but not too often. Always the hardest, or the one that you struggle with, or the most complicated one should be first when you're fresh and everything's not too fatigued. You wouldn't want the hardest exercise to come last. Make sure you cover all your movement patterns, so push, pull, squat, lunge, bend, twist, and even gait as well. So make sure you have your exercises based on that and not on muscles. Muscles are the bodybuilding approach, and we don't. I'm not going to touch on that here, but it's not really very effective at all. It'd take you forever. Abdominal posture related exercises should be last, or they should be used on a recovery day. You can do them on a separate day. Change the program. 6 weeks is probably too long. I really think probably 4 weeks is ideal. And the really heavy stuff probably every 3 weeks, so you don't wear your joints out. Never sacrifice technique to just get more done. And CrossFit uses this rule consistently, as does most group fitness training. All right, technique rules. All right, so no point just doing more sets badly. What's the point to that? Just end up injured. Try to include as many functional movements as you can. Sometimes you just can't on the really heavy stuff. You have to just simplify it. That's why you also don't want to spend too long on that phase, because it does sort of make you a little bit less functional. And be careful of those of overloading complex ones like deadlifts. Or you wouldn't want to do drop sets of deadlifts and things like that. It's just too much risk involved. There's just nothing to be gained and a lot to be lost. Wood chops and sort of those rotational type things don't work very well with this. They're just better suited to being done well. Overloading them with the normal muscles just doesn't really translate into what you want to achieve from that. Right, so that'd be my basic rules on how to use these methods. Let's have a look at supersets. So supersets are sort of very simple, very good for beginners. You can basically, it's just pairing 2 exercises together. You could do a push-up and a chin-up or something like that. Or on the pictures I've got here, it's like a front squat with a 1-leg squat, which would be quite hard doing those back to back. Basically, you would do a set of 10, let's say it's a set of 10 reps, and then straight away with no rest, do a set of 10 reps on each leg on this one, and then you'd have a rest of about 1 minute to 2 minutes straight afterwards before doing that another 2 to 3 more times. All right, you could do that when you overload 2 similar movement patterns, the time under tension is increased, so there's a huge recruitment of muscle fibers and damage being done, which is more so than if it's just done on the exercise on its own. An example of a workout here, taken from one of our books, to be like a squat with a walking lunge. So we've got like really heavy squat mixed with a strength endurance factor of a walking lunge. So this is what we call a contrast load, or a contrast in reps. Next one would be so that'd be like your squat and lunge pattern. Then we've got like a pulling movement pattern with a vertical and a horizontal. You see high intensity on the reps, low intensity there. So we've sort of got a mixture of this. Rest is about 90 seconds. It's increased just because there's a lot of, you're just going to be burning. If you don't wait that long, you won't be able to do another set. All right. This chest press and a barbell squat press, so it's quite functional. And this one's got like a fast tempo because you can't really make this one slow. It just disrupts the timing of it all. And then your last one, you might have a deadlift, which you probably may have gone first with the deadlift as a warm-up, and it's quite a complicated one. Just depends on how good you are at it. And the one that's probably missing from here is a cable wood chop. You could have probably added that in, or you could add that in on your recovery day with your posture and abdominal training. All right, so you can get more of the twisting patterns involved there. All right, so that'd be an example of a superset. Drop sets is very similar to the superset, but just way harder. The point of this is to try and extend the set beyond its normal finishing point. It just takes advantage of the fact that just because you can't lift the weight that you've got right now doesn't mean that your muscles are completely gone. So you just lower the weight and then do another go, and then you lower the weight and do another go. So for example, if for this time we would have sets of 10 reps 10 reps, 10 reps all in a row without a rest. So the weight on the bar might be 60 kilos the first set, which takes her to fatigue. She can't do any more with 60 kilos, so we straight away take 20 kilos off and do another set of 40 kilos. By the end of this one, it'll feel just like the first one. And then her legs are a little bit more tight, so we take a bit more off and we do a set with 20 kilos. Basically, we've done 30 reps, like all in one go, and we count that as one set. If we did 3 sets of that, that would be really tiring, right? And you just get massive amount of muscle gain out of that, doing that sort of a workout. Again, your choice of exercise is crucial. It has to be very simple. If it's too complicated, you just won't be able to do it correctly. All right, so you won't get what you're looking for. Let's have a look at a workout example. So this would take you probably an hour plus to do 3 sets of all this. So you'd be dripping in sweat, and yeah, arms, legs, everything would be pretty hammered. By the end of it, these last ones you see here, these aren't drop sets. They just aren't suited to being done like that. So we would keep them off. Maybe even the shoulder press, you might be a bit fatigued by then. I've got lat pull down. Chin ups don't really work so well for that. You want a sort of an open chain exercise for that sort of thing. And basically, yeah, like you can see here, 10 plus 10 plus 10. So if we did 100 kilos down to 80 kilos to 60 kilos with a 1 minute rest, and then did it again. There's many different ways of doing this, and in our book there's about 10 different drop set examples that I'll give you. This is just one of the simplest ones, just to give you an idea on how to structure your workout and get the most out of it. All right. To set your weights, it's going to take you a few goes to get it right. You have to experiment a bit with it, but once you know, then you sort of got a good feel on other things that are similar, and then it'll set you up for the other advanced training programs, which we'll share on some other videos, which will be, we go over giant sets, trisets, wave loading, tempo change, all those sort of complex training for sports, all those sort of things. They're all good fun. And it gives you lots of different ideas on how to structure a program and get more out of it, and become, just great at what you do without having to train more. All right, so I hope you've enjoyed that video. Make sure you go to our website, www.noregretspt.com.au, and look up more of our stuff and get a copy of our book once it comes out. All right, I look forward to seeing you on the next video.